Hey, my friends, let's talk about relocating. You know, when you move, it's a stressful thing, and no one really likes doing it. Now, it may be best for you, but it's a stressful thing that can wear on your body, in particular your immune system. And there's lots of studies that show high stress situations really increase the chances of an illness or disease state. So I wouldn't be in a habit of moving a lot if you can avoid it. So when you do have to move, though, what are some things to consider? Of course, this is a preparedness channel, so most of us are preppers, obviously, on some level. So what would preppers look for before they actually move? Well, obviously, most of this has to do with a lot of research. But here are some things to ponder on and to look into further if you haven't done it already. And the main motivation for this video is I've been getting a lot of comments and emails talking about how a lot of you guys are moving right now, or you're getting ready to move, or you have plans in the near future to move. And I thought, wow, there's a lot of people moving. And I guess it's that time of the year. You know, it's the end of summer going into fall. Probably one of the most perfect times to move if you had to move. So it makes sense. But here are some things to consider. The first is the crime rate. Now, the crime rate can be complicated because some people have a lot more concerns about certain types of crimes than others. And it's not just so much about the occurrence rate of crime overall, but really specifically what is going on in your area. Is there drug problems? Is there a lot of theft problems? Things like that. And you definitely want to know what the problems are before you move all your stuff there and make a financial obligation to pay on a house for 30 years. So crime rate. Next is the cost of living. And this obviously includes taxes. Tax is a big thing. You know, when I moved to a place that had a lot lower taxes, and it's been really an amazing thing. Cost of living for me has dropped almost in half. Also, before you actually move to the location that you think you want to move to, go to the local stores, see how much things cost. Maybe even go to like the grocery store and do a dry run. You know, buy your groceries there and compare that to how much you spend already at your current location, and see if it's a really large difference. Be surprised, you know, even 100 miles away from where you live now, groceries may cost quite a bit different. And that's what I've noticed. The next is privacy. As you can see around here, I'm around a lot of woods and in a somewhat rural area. And that's in a big contrast to where I came from. I came from the suburban area of a large city. And everybody has their needs in terms of, well, even their wants, in terms of how much privacy is going to be acceptable. Some people can share 2 walls, you know, and live in an apartment, and it'd be okay. But that would, and no pun intended, drive me up a wall to share walls. And so I can't live like that. I can't live in a condo or a duplex or an apartment. I've tried that, and it's horrible. And I don't do well also in urban environments. Even if I have my own house in an urban environment, it's just too tight, too much density. And I've tried the suburban area, which was my last attempt, and that still was too congested. So for me, I needed more privacy. And privacy lends a lot toward safety and security, because it's a little harder to keep tabs on what you're doing when you come and go. Also, people don't really see what you're doing, and you may not be so much a target to a crime. So you won't be a victim as easily. Now, there's crimes in rural areas, though. But what I've noticed since living here in this more rural area compared to the suburbs, that crime rates are much lower, much lower. In fact, I hardly ever hear anything going on where I live. It's almost like it's just kind of boring out here, which is good. You want boring when it comes to crime. The next thing to consider is the population density. Just like we're talking about living in different types of environments in terms of privacy. Yeah, do you want to be around a lot of people? You know, do you want to commute and have a lot of traffic? Like where I live, there's not that many people around. There's just not. Especially when you get off the main roads, you can go miles and miles and not see anyone. It can just be fields and fields and farms. And what I can tell you is that for me, that works really well. I don't miss the congestion. I don't miss, you know, hundreds of people trying to leave out of my neighborhood at the same time to go to work. And it just be a bunch of like cars and pollution and, you know, motors and honking of the horn and sirens. I don't miss that at all. The next thing to consider, especially for us preppers, is the natural resources in the area that we're looking at living. Natural resources, not just water, and water's a really big one, but good soil to do your planting for your gardens. And also, you know, about what else is in the area, you know, in terms of maybe schools and hospitals and things like that. Now, that's not so much a natural resource, but that is a resource. But you're going to consider man-made resources and especially natural resources. And I guess also in the natural resources, you want to look at what is just the native plants. So you got plant life and animal life as well, especially if you're into hunting. That could be a real big deal. The next is the weather, or I like to kind of maybe be a little bit more specific and call it weather cycles. You can move just an hour in any direction, and believe it or not, in most cases, you're going to see a different type of weather. And from where I moved from, I'm a bit shocked about how much more rain I get where I'm at now and how much more wind. In fact, I went from a location that averaged about 6 tornadoes a year to where I'm at now, and we average 9 tornadoes a year. So that's a bit of a difference. And I was a little bit shocked. Also, the average temperature is like about 3 degrees cooler than where I used to live. And so I'm okay with all that, but it's good to know ahead of time before you move. The next is pollution. And I'm not talking about just water pollution and, you know, pollution in the air. But don't forget to kind of consider the noise pollution and light pollution. If you're sensitive and you have a hard time sleeping, make sure you invest in heavy window coverings or blinds if you're going to live in a suburban or urban area. And trust me, I've gone through those problems in the past. I used to work night shift for many years. I've always had, you know, bits of insomnia when I was working those shifts, and it was just horrible. Besides the noise, the light was always going on when I got home. And of course, by the time, you know, I actually fell asleep, the sun was coming up or already up. But it was just difficult on, you know, those days that I was off from work to deal with some of the noise in particular during the day in my neighborhood, you know, because I was a night worker. And so you want to kind of see if your lifestyle is going to kind of be compatible with your environment. So don't forget to look at the different types of pollution and how you can, you know, deal with that if you can at all. The next is politics. Now, politics is something that you're going to definitely have to dig a little bit into the demographics of an area to get a feel for what people believe and what people want. And for me, you know, that's a big thing for me, politics. I don't want to have neighbors that are like Hillary Clinton supporters. You know, I don't want that. And in the area that I live, thankfully, and of course, I kind of knew this ahead of time, but I have never met anyone actually in my whole town or my street or anyone that that pretty much deviates in large ways from my political beliefs. So that's really awesome. Next is education level. You don't want to probably live next to people that can't provide for themselves, they can't help themselves, that they're a burden on their other extended family and a burden on society, or a burden on the neighbors, which you would be the neighbor, so you would have to kind of deal with some of these people. So you kind of want to look at, before you move in or build a house, who are your neighbors? And just because someone didn't go to college doesn't mean that they can't be a good neighbor. That's not true at all. So the thing of it is here is that you just want to make sure that people are working, that people have jobs, people are focused, they have goals. And, you can pretty much easily figure this out by just going over and introducing yourself to the locals, especially on your street before you move, and just get a feel for who they are and maybe what they do and so forth. It's amazing in just a couple conversations how you can get a feel for people. And lastly are the laws of your area. Now, of course, you have your federal laws, which are already there, state laws, and this is, important if you're moving out of state to somewhere else. You definitely want to look into that. But most people that I talk to, they move within the state that they live. I've noticed it's a little more rare to find people that leave their state. And so it happens, but it's not as common as people just moving around to another neighborhood or another city within the state that they were kind of used to being, or maybe they were raised in. But it is surprising, though, local city ordinances, local city laws can be very different than others, even within the same state. So you want to look at, and this is kind of putting it bluntly, how free are you at that location? And I can tell you that where I live now, I have a lot more freedom. And legally speaking, I am more free. I really am more free than where I used to live. And that makes me feel really good. I know I did the right thing, because I want to live somewhere that can maximize my freedom. And especially a lot of us preppers are very much into, libertarianism, in terms of expanding our freedoms as much as possible and minimizing government. And I have to say that, when you pick a good location that you can exercise your rights and there's no one causing any kind of interference, you do feel free because you actually are. And that's something that a lot of people don't even know what that's like, because they don't have the opportunity to exercise certain rights or freedoms because they don't have them. And that's why it's really difficult to talk to certain people, especially in other countries, that don't have a lot of freedoms of what I'm talking about here. There's just so many different examples. But one of them, let's just kind of pull one out of the air here just to kind of make it more concrete, is the right to bear arms. Where I live currently, I can open carry, I can conceal carry, and I'm almost in a position here that I can pretty much carry almost anything I want. I mean, almost anything for personal protection. It's just really great. But I have a lot of friends in Australia and Great Britain and throughout Europe. And pretty much across the board, they are heavily restricted. Not just on what firearms that they can own, which typically it's very, very few, if any at all in some areas, but even the type of pocket knife that you have. You can't have a locking mechanism. It can't be over 3 inches. In some places, I think it's like 2 inches. And there's like restrictions on top of restrictions. And I think that, it gets to a point, though, you have to say, why do I have so many restrictions if I'm a law-abiding citizen? If I'm a law-abiding citizen, what is the government afraid of? And you're going to have to push back on some level if you want to take back your rights. It's kind of ridiculous. You have to think that the government works for you, not you as a slave to the government. And that's the end of my rant there. But I wish everyone the very best in other countries, and those who live in some of the states here in the United States that are becoming more draconian, that there are so so harsh in terms of their attack on the Bill of Rights. And I get so upset about that. You know, like I could never live in California, for example. It's just so all over the top. Some of these ongoing, it's almost like every week they come out with new ridiculous laws that make you that much more enslaved, and you're just that much less free every week, it seems like. And some preppers rightfully say that the land in California is beautiful and there's lots of natural resources. But when you have the cost of living, which is off the charts, when you have taxes, which is off the charts, which is obviously part of cost of living, when you don't have any freedoms and the rights to bear certain firearms and certain other freedoms, then why would you want to live there? And all due respect to those preppers that have put some videos up in the recent days talking about that California is the best state in the union to move to, I respectfully disagree. I respectfully disagree. Because it may be one of the best places to go in terms of natural resources. But if you can't legally do things and have things, then you're not going to actually have them available when bad things happen and when you need them. Because a lot of the people are talking about, well, if we have a collapse of government, then it doesn't matter what the laws are because they're going to be null and void. Yeah, but if you don't have access to what the things you need beforehand and you can't get them legally, then you're telling me that I should be a criminal during the rule of law. And I don't think that's a good plan of action. I would rather live in other states that it's lawful during the rule of law to own the things that we should be able to own and do the things that we should be able to do as free people. So these are my thoughts. I hope this helped you if you're moving. And, you know, once again, take it easy. Don't try to overstress. You know, minimize your stress load. That's the first thing about moving. You don't want to get all worked up over things. You're going to have enough things to deal with. So just take one thing at a time. As always, you guys take care. Thanks for checking the video out. And I'll make another video real soon.